Coming up
Relation of
on
conflict.
Lyssa.
This is a really important one to get, okay? Because a lot of times people who are stonewalling, they don't want to be having the conflict, right? Well, get this, take this in, okay? You are escalating the conflict. You are ensuring that that conflict is going to get multitudes bigger. It's going to get worse. It's going to get more intense. It's going to get more dysregulated. It's going to get more ridiculous and inundated with things that don't even have anything to do with it. It's just going to snowball like crazy to a level that you did never even imagine. And so what you're doing is you're just making a conflict that you already didn't want to really address 20 times bigger and 20 times more impossible to address, and essentially guaranteeing that that conflict is going to be your demise, because you will not address it. The most logical reason to stop engaging in stonewalling, besides the fact that it's purely emotional abuse to your partner, is that it quite literally does not achieve your goal. It gets you the thing that you don't want to happen. It gets you the thing that you're trying to avoid.
Hey! Listen!
Hey, welcome back. Welcome to Listen Lyssa. I am your host, Alyssa. Another hot day caused by me, no doubt. I'm sure at this point in life we've all been through our fair share of emotional heartbreak, our fair share of relationships that went down the tubes that we were very unhappy about. And I know if you're anything like me, you've probably researched into what you could do to make sure that doesn't happen as much in the future, and how you could improve, and what are the elements of a relationship that are essential, and what are the things that tend to guarantee, if you engage in these behaviors, that it's going to go down the tubes. Well, someone named Gottman actually defined these, and they're called the 4 Horsemen of the Apocolypse of relationships. And he has been deemed one of the most influential therapists of the last 25 years, in the top 10. So he's kind of a big deal. I want to share with you today one of the 4 Horsemen, and it is called stonewalling. Let's get into it. If you don't know what stonewalling is, let me enlighten you. Stonewalling is a behavior that someone can engage in to avoid conflict, to avoid communication, to avoid a topic that they do not want to talk about, or to avoid a partner that they do not want to engage with, or to avoid anyone that they don't want to engage with, that they maybe have a responsibility to engage with, okay? Stonewalling is when you shut down forms of communication. So it's a way of controlling the situation where you do not have to engage in the conversation that the other person wants to have. This is something that happens in romantic relationships. It can happen between friends, it can happen in families, and it can happen in the workplace. Particularly when it is a common practice in a romantic relationship, it is deemed emotional abuse to stonewall your partner. And there are reasons for that, parameters that are surrounding what is deemed abuse, in the nature that it is harmful, short-term and long-term, to the person who is enduring it. It's also harmful to the relationship, and it's also harmful to the person doing it. Over time, and in efforts of what they are trying to accomplish, they don't accomplish it this way long-term. So it is harmful to them as well. It doesn't get their goal accomplished, and it's just not good for anyone. So it is a terrible behavior to engage in. And I think that oftentimes people do it without realizing. They might do it for reasons to protect themselves and not realize that they are harming the other person or the relationship quite as much as they could stand to be harming it. When it comes to human behavior, I think it's very important to always remember that every behavior has a purpose behind it. So there is something that this person has in mind that they believe they are going to accomplish by engaging in this behavior. They're getting something out of it. The main functions of a behavior are going to be attention or escape. There's also automatic behaviors, which would be more in relation to individuals who have developmental disabilities or maybe related conditions such as autism or any other related behavioral condition that affects their social behaviors. But other than that, a behavior is either to escape something or to gain attention or to gain a tangible. Just like anything else, stonewalling serves a purpose. It's not a healthy purpose. It is never constructive to a relationship to engage in this behavior. But nonetheless, there is a purpose behind it. So these are the common purposes that it may be employed for. So number 1 would be avoiding conflict. So the function of that behavior would be for escape. They want to get away from something. They want to avoid something. They don't want to have this conflict. So something about the conflict and whatever happens in that conflict, they want to run away from it. They don't want anything to do with it. So that's why they would stonewall. For some reason, somebody might avoid conflict. They may be, like we talked about attachment style. Who's going to be very likely to avoid conflict? Avoidant attachment styles, right? So they're not going to be very into the idea of having conflict, talking about it. They're going to probably use tactics to push it away. So they're very much more prone to this behavior. A secure attached individual is likely not going to engage in stonewalling. For the most part, they wouldn't be the ones to reach for this right off the bat. And then anxious preoccupied, absolutely not. They're not going to stonewall you. They're like dying to talk to you. So number 2, another reason that someone might stonewall is for emotional self-protection. It can be a way for the individual to shield themselves from emotional distress. So if they feel overwhelmed with their emotions, they're not very comfortable with them, they might just really run away from the situation and just not answer the questions. They just might feel too many feelings that they don't have the words, so they don't respond. The third purpose of stonewalling could be to gain control. Now this one's a little more sinister and pointed. So this would be employed by somebody that's kind of in a not so nice way, employing this tactic, knowing that it's harmful and doing it in efforts to gain control. So has an ulterior motive, has a sinister or malicious intention behind it. So they might notice that when they refuse to engage in a conversation with their partner gets very desperate and then begs for their attention and then will do whatever they say. So that's why they would engage in that behavior, is because to get their partner to do whatever they say, and because they like that weakness, that their partner bows down to them. That's getting into territory of really abusive and not going to be a good relationship at all. When the purpose for the stonewalling is to gain control, it's usually because they want to kind of teach a lesson of you disobeyed me, you went against me, I know what's best and I need to be in charge in this relationship, and you had the nerve to defy me, and I want to show you why you can't do that. So now you don't get to talk to me and think about what you did wrong. And then in a sense they want their partner to really apologize for going against them, apologize for not agreeing with them, apologizing for not getting it right the way they wanted them to act, or fall all over themselves and be like, I can't get it right, I'm just so flawed, I'm such an error, and I'm sorry, I will try harder, I will do everything for you, I will do better. They want that control, and they want to make sure that the next time their partner even thinks about not going along with what they're telling them to do, they will think twice. Number 4 reason why someone might stonewall is that eviler word, manipulation. If someone's stonewalling you, they might be trying to manipulate you. So it's really hard to differentiate the two, number 3 and number 4, because they kind of sound the same, right? Gaining control, manipulating, which one's which, So gaining control is usually they just want a sense of control, for power. So they want to make sure you're gonna do everything that they want you to do. You're gonna do it their way, and that's why it's a little more sinister. I tend to think that the manipulation is not as sinister. It's, again, none of these purposes are good ones. However, whereas I would say where gaining control is always maliciously intended a bit. I mean, you have intentions to control someone. That's not a positive intention. You should never want to control someone, especially your partner. But manipulation isn't necessarily that you have bad intentions. So manipulation could be that you truly feel that you were hurt by this person and that they tend to never say they're sorry. You want to make up. You believe that they were definitely in the wrong, and they're not going to want to make up with you unless you withhold from them and stay away, so that they will have something to desire, so that then they will come close to you and want to apologize. They will realize that they were rude to you. They will see that you're so upset, you're not talking to them. They're going to want to talk to you, and they're going to want to be close to you. So if you stonewall them, they're going to be more likely to apologize and make amends more quickly, because you don't want to make amends because you didn't do anything. It's not your fault, right? I think this happens probably often in relationships. Some people would be like,
well, yeah, of course I'm not going to talk to you until you apologize.
The thing is that the way to come together in a relationship and to be in a truly healthy and well operating relationship is that you don't necessarily always have to deem one person at fault, and you are not the all-seeing judge of who was at fault. So even though you might feel like your partner was completely at fault, it is wrong to then stonewall them into apologizing to you, because in a really healthy relationship, the two partners are going to come together and they're going to discuss, this is how I felt, this is how I felt, oh, I see why you felt that way, oh, I see why you felt that way, okay, if I could see if you were thinking of it that way, then I would probably feel that way too if I was thinking of it that way. And the other person person needs to hear out their partner. And so you guys can validate each other's feelings during what happened, therefore making more sense in what happened, okay? Because if you're in a truly healthy and loving relationship, people aren't going to be acting a certain way to hurt you. They're going to be acting a certain way because they felt hurt or they felt like you were doing this to them. So whereas I feel like manipulating might be a really tempting reason to want to stonewall because it might get you what you want, which is you want your partner to, grovel at your feet and say,
I'm so sorry, babe. I'm so sorry. I should have never talked to you like that, princess. You are the stars in my sky, and I will never, ever disrespect you that way again, queen. Would you like me to go get your foot bath, and I will bring a rose in my teeth, and please take my flawed self back, and I will fall at your feet until the day you decide that I am worthy again.
No manipulating, because you guys need to come together and validate each other's feelings instead. Number 5 reason your partner might stonewall you is because they want to punish you. Okay, now punishment sounds like really messed up. And honestly, I agree it is, because you don't punish adults. You don't need to punish another adult. That's not how relationships work. You don't need to enact punishment. You don't need to teach somebody a lesson. You need to talk, and you need to compromise, and you need to find middle ground. So that's why this is harmful to a relationship, because in a sense, if you're punishing your partner, then you are treating your partner like they are a child, and that you have the authority to enact a punishment upon them, which is innately acting superior to them. And it means that you in some way are viewing them as inferior to you. So this one, though, it can be happening for reasons that you're not, necessarily trying to gain control. You're not necessarily trying to do this for some sinister purpose, but you feel like you've been wronged by your partner and maybe they're not getting it and you don't want that to happen again. So maybe you're just hurt right now and you don't think that they deserve to be allowed to talk to you at this moment because they said something very disrespectful, and you don't want people to be able to feel like they can disrespect you like that. So you might want to teach them a lesson. So punishment, the way it would be different from like gaining control or manipulation would be manipulation is to seek a goal. So manipulation, you're trying to get to a certain goal, which is you want to manipulate your partner into apologizing for the entire ordeal, right? So once you reach that goal, you would then drop your guard again and you would talk to them. You wouldn't keep stonewalling them or refusing to engage. However, if somebody's trying to punish you, they're not going to stop right when you get it. They're going to drag you around a little bit longer because they're going to really rub it in. They want to make sure you get this lesson, okay? So if it's punishment purposes and they're trying to kind of like be superior over you or kind of trying to act like the adult and you're the child, it's a little demeaning. They're probably going to drag this out longer than the time that you give in to what they're wanting you to do. They're going to be like,
Well, don't try that now. No, I think you need to dangle a little bit longer.
that's going to be more of a punishment. Number 6 would be to avoid responsibility. They don't want to apologize. They don't like to be held responsible. They don't like to be held accountable. They're not very in touch with that part of themselves that gives them that security within themselves to be able to admit to wrongs. They might feel very insecure. They might feel very criticized, and that may really hit them in a core wound. So they're not very good at admitting responsibility for things. So they may stonewall because they don't want to get trapped into doing that. Okay, number 7 would be that they want to maintain privacy. Maybe there's a topic with your partner that you're bringing up and you're wanting to talk about, but your partner's just not comfortable talking about that yet. Maybe they haven't shared it. Maybe it's largely a secret for them, and it's not something that they've ever talked about with somebody else, or they've only shared it with people that were the closest to them, and maybe they haven't gotten around to that level with you yet. And you may be wanting to have this, all entranced, enmeshed, and connected relationship where you just give it all. And maybe your partner isn't quite as comfortable with that. And they want a level of privacy, and they don't want to talk about certain topics. They aren't ready, or maybe they never will be ready. And you have to assess if that's a good match for you. If you tend to want to be fully connected and, connect at the deepest level that possibly you can. Because some people don't do that. Even in their closest relationships, they don't do that. So that might be something that you can't get to with that partner. Number 8, the purpose of stonewalling could be that they want to stall the conversation or delay it. They're trying to put it off. Avoiding conflict would be if, like, it's an argument, They don't want to have an argument. They're going to avoid conflict, so that's why they would stonewall. This one's more so like they don't want to have that conversation. So it may not necessarily be conflict. It could just be something that they don't want to talk about. They don't want to get into. Maybe they don't want to get into talking about marriage. Maybe they don't want to get into talking about spending more time together. Maybe they don't want to talk about, it could be one of the other things that I've already said. So it could be like they don't want to talk about something that's private to them. They don't want to get into talking about something that they would have to take responsibility for. They just, basically, they want to delay the conversation. So they're just going to give you a hard time every time you try to talk to them, so that you're not able to get that conversation out of them. Okay. So then number 9, the purpose could be that they're withholding emotionally. Sometimes people could withdraw emotionally from their partner. Usually this involves a feeling of not knowing how to engage emotionally, not being comfortable with that level of emotionality, not maybe knowing how to tap into those emotions, not really knowing how to deal with your emotions. Maybe you go a little bit deeper than they know how to go, and they're not comfortable with that. So they're going to stonewall you to make sure that they don't have to have that experience that's very uncomfortable for them, or it could be very overwhelming for them. Or maybe they're just pushed to their limit, and maybe it's something about the way you enter into the conversation that is just way too much for them to handle emotionally, and they don't know how to handle it other than to just block you out. And all of those purposes being brought to your attention, and you maybe even being able to identify which purpose the stonewalling is happening for, I really want to emphasize that not a one of those purposes is going to be conducive to whatever goal the stonewaller is attempting to achieve. It's not going to be helpful to the relationship. It is not going to be productive. It's across the board, 100% of the time, going to end up being harmful to the relationship. That's why John Gottman has deemed stonewalling as one of the 4 horsemen of the relationship apocalypse, which means that as soon as you start to see these behaviors and they become repetitive in your relationship, you can pretty much guarantee that if you continue to engage that way with each other, you are going to harm the relationship to a point of no return, and it is going to fail and fall apart. That is destruction of a relationship. Stonewalling is very destructive between two people. It absolutely destroys intimacy. It absolutely destroys bonds, and it makes two people feel very disconnected. And sometimes, well, not sometimes, all the time, if it is continuous, it is going to destroy that relationship eventually. Okay, so if you know you're stonewalling in the relationship, or you know that your partner is stonewalling in the relationship, you want to nip it in the bud immediately. You want to get that out of there, unless the two of you are ready to watch yourselves go right down to your demise, because it's been seen in many studies and it's been tried and true as one of 4 horsemen. The evil horses are going to ride off into the darkness, and they're going to go separate ways. You're not going to be together. Am I the only one who's imagining like John Gottman's 4 horsemen as these just like 4 dark horses that are like, they have like the word on this, it's like
Stonewalling.
and then that's the one that's going to like drag you guys off into your like relationship doom. You don't want to go there. Get off that horse right now. Now, I say get off that horse and stop engaging in this behavior immediately, but we all know that that takes 2, right? So you may be the partner that's not engaging in it. Maybe you're the one that's receiving it, and maybe your partner isn't going to be on board to acknowledging that they're stonewalling. So this obviously takes cooperation from someone. If you're the one being stonewalled, then this is going to take cooperation from your partner who is stonewalling you to recognize their behavior, right? And most of the time, good people that are engaging in bad behaviors are not tending to be aware of them. So you might be doing this and really not want to see that that's what we're doing, because that's offensive, right? Like when you tell someone that they're doing this mean thing that's called emotional abuse, like they're going to be like, why are you being so dramatic? I don't do that. I don't abuse you. Like, how could you accuse me of that? They're going to be probably defensive, right? If you're not the one doing the stonewalling, let's say that you're the partner that's being stonewalled often, and you go to your partner and you tell them,
Hey, it's really hurting me that you're stonewalling me all the time.
And they go,
What is stonewalling? I'm not doing that. I don't abuse you. That's ridiculous.
okay, so how would you help them to see? A really key thing for you to be aware of at this point, if you're the partner that's being stonewalled, is, does your partner want to see it? Are they interested in even entertaining that your experience and what you're experiencing is valid? Do they even want to hear you? So if you just get shut down and you get stonewalled even more for telling them that they're stonewalling, which was my experience, then you're not going to get anywhere. But if you have a partner that's like, how am I doing that? Explain it to me, because I don't see it. And they actually are interested in knowing how they're doing this, and they care about how much hurt they see that you're in and the pain that you're going through. Most partners that are in love and actually care about the relationship and care more about, the two of you in the relationship than just themselves, then they're going to want to figure this out with you. They're going to go, you obviously are hurt. You're saying that something I'm doing is causing it. I truly do not see it. I don't see how I'm doing it. So please show me how I'm doing it so I can stop, because I don't want you to be hurting. I care about the fact that you're hurting. I just don't agree with how I'm causing it. Okay, that is a great. If they have that piece, be thankful, be grateful. You know, it's not everything. They're not just like, you're right, I'm doing that and I'm going to take accountability today. You're almost never going to get that with anybody. And I don't think you would, if you held yourself to the same standard, you would probably see you come up short often as well. So if someone is at least willing to take a look at it because they care that you're in pain, let me tell you right now, coming from someone that's been in a relationship where that was not the case, that is invaluable all by itself. Take that. Really, really respect your partner for that. If you can find it in your heart, do your best to give them support in that situation. Give them some time to come around to it. Give them some patience, because that's all we can really ask for from other people, is that they might not always see things our way or see maybe how their behavior is showing up all the time. And they might hurt our feelings. They might hurt us. We're going to hurt your partner. It's just the way it is. You're going to hurt your partner. They're going to hurt you. That is how relationships go. You have to accept that as part of it. The key is being with a partner that cares when they hurt you, and they want to know why. They want to know how they hurt you. They want to know the details of how you're hurting, what made it get that way, and they want to know how they can change it, and they want to work at that, even if they don't see it right away, even if they really truly don't think they're doing that when you tell them that they are. And when it comes to stonewalling, it's a behavior that's really hard to see within yourself if you're not noticing that you're doing it. So here's a few key signs that you can look for, a few key ways that you can evaluate yourself, or you can help your partner to evaluate themselves if they don't recognize that they're doing this. Okay, so physical signs. So whenever there's a conflict, when someone comes to you with conflict, you know, whichever way it's going, I'm gonna act like it's you. You're the one that's stonewalling and you don't know you're doing it, okay? So when someone comes to you with a conflict and they say, I need to talk to you. This is not going right. We need to talk. What immediately comes up in your body? Do you feel tightness in your chest? Do you feel agitation, like legs are getting shaky, or do you feel a clenching? Do you get hot? Does your head start to spin? Do you start to space out? Do you immediately have this like urge to like move away? What does your body feel like when this happens? Think about it. Think about every time, if you have a partner right now or you had a partner in the past, every time they came to you and they were like,
I'm upset about something. I want to talk about it.
What did your body do? Did you get that like heart racing feeling, or what was it? And assess, did you want to have that conversation? Or were you immediately kind of like, oh, no. Get out of this at all costs. Get away from this. We have to find a way out. Do not let her have this conversation. Do not let him have this conversation. I do not want it. Think about that. Number 2, this is the part where you would take it a step further and assess the emotion that's connected. So if you've done any like emotional body work, you might already know kind of what your body does when it's reacting to certain emotions. So you might be able to easily identify what emotions are going with that. If not, I want to say that if you're engaging in this type of behavior and you're not aware of it, you might be someone that doesn't necessarily delve deep into their emotions a lot. So you might be a little disconnected with that part of you. So this could be difficult, but you'll probably know the main ones. You know if you're angry. You'll probably know if you're anxious. You probably know if you're anxious, it's probably like that escape feeling. You want to get away. You'll probably know if you're irritated. I mean, you know those are basic ones. You'll know if you feel that way, right? So just be very honest with yourself and ask yourself if that's what you feel when your partner wants to speak to you about something like that. And number 3, you need to really just dive in deep and observe from a third-party lens your communication patterns. So when these topics come up and your partner wants to talk to you about something, stonewalling involves a refusal and a resistance and an avoidance of a conversation or of conflict, okay? So think about what behaviors you're engaging in when you're communicating. So when someone's trying to communicate with you about something like this, are you answering questions? If you're asked a question, are you answering that question? Are you taking a long, drawn-out time before you answer your partner's question when they ask you, and then you kind of just sit there and you might stall somehow. You might say, hold on, or you might say right after this, or you might say, I need to go to the restroom, or I don't know. You might just pause and not say anything. Maybe you never get around to answering them. Just think about that. Do you often find yourself not answering questions? It doesn't matter what the reason is that you're doing that. Observe that behavior. If you are not answering questions when they're asked of you with a partner, this is just 2 adults, okay? If your partner and you are not having a problem and there's no games being played, there's no different tactics being employed, then when your partner asks you a question, if you're going to take a while to answer it, you're going to likely say, okay, I need to think about that. let's see, you're not just going to simply be silent. You're not just going to simply continue to watch TV and act like they didn't say anything. You're not going to do that. You would not do that. Think of at work, your boss or one of your peers asked you a question. You're not going to just and have them waiting there in this weird silence forever, like where you're just not going to answer them. So ask yourself, are you answering questions when your partner asks them of you? And if you're not, regardless of the reason, whether it's that you are thinking about the answer, whether it's that you think it's a stupid question, whether it's that you don't want to say the wrong thing, so you're waiting, you would communicate that. That you can't, when you're talking to another adult, it's disrespectful to just ignore them or just stay silent for amazingly long times before you answer their question that they've already asked to you. I mean, that's just, you don't treat your partner that way. Like, what I'm saying is, I'm not blaming or trying to shame anyone that's doing that. What I'm trying to say is be careful of the temptation to excuse that away. There's really no valid excuse that would make that a healthy behavior. That is an indication of something, and it likely could be of avoiding a conversation or of stonewalling. It is one of the very first signals, if you will, of stonewalling. It's the beginning behavior of it happening, is you're not answering questions, you're not responding, okay? So if you're doing that, it's not to shame you. Just recognize that that is not a healthy behavior, and that is not how you would treat your partner in a healthy way. So don't let yourself off the hook with saying, I just take a while to answer questions. I just need to think of it a little bit longer. That's why I do that. And I do that, I do that all the time. I'm not just doing that to them. Just avoid giving yourself that excuse, because that is how you're putting this shield in front of your eyes, if that's the case, of not being able to see that you're stonewalling, is because you're explaining that away. And that behavior is not kind to your partner. It's not being respectful to them. It's not honoring them as another adult that's talking to you. Now if someone's coming out and just screaming at you and just like, answer my question, that's different. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when your partner asks you a normal question in a normal tone of voice, whatever it may be, you're not answering them. Okay, that's a good indicator. Some other communication patterns that could be present if you might be engaging in stonewalling could be that you are giving very short responses, maybe not helpful responses. Maybe you're being a little bit stubborn with your responses, or a little bit less forthcoming. You're being non-communicative. You're not really answering their questions. You might be giving very roundabout answers that you're very well aware. If you think about it, as a grown person, you're aware that that is not answering their question. And so they're getting a little bit frustrated probably with you. And they're like,
why aren't you answering my question? You can hear what I'm saying. Why aren't you answering?
And you're just like,
I did. I said maybe.
Or whatever it is. It's just like you're not actually answering it. And you could be real with yourself and say, I'm being purposefully difficult here. If you notice that you have the same conversation, it seems like, time after time again, your partner wants to bring it back up. They come back out and they want to bring it up the next night, and they want to bring it up another night, and they're bringing it up another night, and you're like,
again?
And then you kind of do the same dance over again. Examine what your responses are in those conversations. Why is this conversation happening over and over again? Is your partner really beating a dead horse? Are they really just like picking this apart? Or are you maybe not engaging in the conversation? Are you maybe consistently using methods to deflect from the conversation? A common way sometimes people will stonewall is your partner may have like a very specific topic that they've brought up, an overall topic, and they explain how they feel about it, and you choose one little detail within that topic that is not really relevant to the overall topic, but you pick that one out and you just like use that to like hone in on, and then you stay on that. And it kind of like derails the conversation, and you guys end up getting just like completely distracted on that thing that you deflected to, and your partner doesn't realize until the end of the conversation that you never addressed what they actually were bringing up. So then they might get upset, and you guys might go to bed, and then the next day they might just be feeling, again, really very overwhelmed and very confused about why this didn't get resolved when they came to you and brought it up. And you guys don't seem to have talked about it because you talked about the thing that you distracted and deflected to. So if you notice that your partner keeps bringing something up over and over again, you're probably not addressing the part of it that they're trying to bring to you. So you could be engaging in stonewalling. If you don't think that you are, maybe if that's happening, ask your partner partner, what is the end goal that you're looking for in this conversation? What do you need from me? What do you want me to see? What is important for you to get me to see, to hear you? And then lastly, do you find yourself either leaving in the middle of arguments or conversations, or saying, I'm done, I don't want to talk about this anymore, before it reaches a resolution? Or do you find yourself often saying whatever excuse, I'm really tired tonight, or I have to do this tonight, can we talk about this tomorrow, or can we talk about this in the morning, can we talk about this a little bit later, can we, that's okay once in a while, but do you find yourself doing that often? Maybe one way to figure out that you're doing that would be that your partner says that you're doing that. If your partner says, you always want to put it off, it's always tomorrow, you always want me to wait, when is it going to happen, you always say this, we never talk about it, you never get around to it, you never have time to do it, I don't think you're really going to get to it, things like that. If you're hearing your partner say that, it's probably coming from a place where they really believe that, they're really noticing that. So be self-aware enough to go, okay, my partner's saying this, and that seems to be really bothering them, so maybe I am doing that. We're adults, so just be honest with yourself, and if you notice that is what you do, if you often say, can this wait till tomorrow? Can we do this tomorrow? Let's do this later. If you notice that you are doing that, figure out what you're avoiding about that. What is the reason that you do not want to engage in this conversation at this time, or many times? It makes you want to put it off, it makes you want to say not right now. Is it in general with your partner, or is it this topic? Just think about what is causing you to want to put that off. And unless you have some just really crappy reason, like, I don't care what my partner thinks, and I don't care about that, and I'm right about it, and I don't want to hear what they have to say about it, and I'm just going to put it off forever. There are people like that. There are people out there like that. I wouldn't think that they would probably be watching a video like this, but if that's the case, then you're not going to get anywhere with this, because that person is doing this on purpose and they don't want it to change. This is their goal. They want to do this. They want to put that off, and they don't want to have this conversation with you, and they're not interested in why that is. They already know why that is, and they don't want to do it, and they're not going to change it. That's why I say you need to really assess if you have a partner that cares about how they're hurting you, regardless of what their stance is on whatever's going on. If they don't care that this is hurting you, and they don't care to examine what you're telling them is happening here and how it's hurting you, then you have nowhere to go with that. And I'm sorry to say, it's very painful and it's very hurtful, but there's nothing, you can't make somebody else care about something. You just have to know that you care about yourself enough to then exit, because that's not a relationship. And the last two things you can do to figure out maybe if you're engaging in stonewalling and you aren't aware of it would be, you can check within yourself what your intentions are. So what are your intentions when your partner is trying to talk to you about things that are important, or things that are a little intimidating, or things that are conflicts? What is your intention typically when you're doing whatever you're doing, when you're responding to them? So is your intention to avoid that conversation, or is your intention to hear them out and get to a resolution? So this again takes authenticity. This takes real self-reflection. This takes truth. You have to really examine what is your intention. If you're consistently saying, can we do this later? Or if you're giving one-word answers, if you're finding yourself not answering questions, pausing for long periods of time, or not answering at all, I don't think you can quite say that your intention is to hear your partner out and resolve this matter. Your intention is likely to avoid that conversation and avoid that conflict. And that's okay. That's okay to figure that out. That step is necessary. That is good. If you can realize that, then the next step is ask yourself why. Because there's a reason why. That you have a reason why. You're not just doing this to be harmful. If you are, then whatever. That's not who I'm talking to here. If you're not doing this to be harmful, then just ask yourself why. Why am I doing this? What about the situation is making me feel like I have to do that? And that's going to take you to your next step of resolving the matter and figuring out what's causing you to withhold in this way, so that you and your partner can reestablish that bond, and you can find a better way to address these feelings, or this fear in you, or this tactic will not need to be employed anymore to harm your relationship. And then lastly, you could get feedback from your partner. Listen to all those things that they're saying, which if you are engaging in stonewalling, it's probably pretty irritating and stressful for you to hear all those things that your partner is saying and the feedback that they're giving. That can be difficult, but this is the first step, again, like I said, to resolving this matter. If you notice a lot of frustration from your partner every time you guys have a conversation, this is a good indication that there might be some resistance on your end. If you're noticing that they're sad, they're hurt, at the end of a conversation, so-called, they're not feeling better. It's not, the needle's not moving and progressing in the right direction. You never kind of get back to square one where you're good again. It's not getting resolved. Like I said, if it feels like your partner just keeps coming to you to have the same conversation, and you're like,
again? You want to have the this conversation every day.
You're probably not having the conversation, and that's really normal. Like if you're avoiding something because of a fear or because of something, an outcome that you don't like happening, usually when you've noticed that you engage in these types of behaviors in the past, or you engage in these type of conversations in the past, it hasn't gone well for you. You're a little bit resistant to that outcome. Maybe you came from a home where you got humiliated, or you got put in your place a lot and you didn't really have a voice. You got talked over. Maybe you're avoiding things like that. You don't want to get demeaned. You don't want to get humiliated. You don't want to be put in your place. You don't want to be controlled. You don't want to be manipulated. Maybe you think those things are going to happen to you. So that could be why you're stonewalling. So if partner is consistently trying to have the same conversation or repeatedly attempting to engage with you in that way, and they are feeling frustrated and you're noticing that and they're telling you,
I'm frustrated. This keeps happening.
listen to your partner. Now, like I said in the beginning, healing this behavior is going to take a level of, from the person who's engaging in this behavior that isn't aware of it, it's going to require some level of, you care about your partner's experience. You see them in pain and you're not just thinking about immediately, well, I'm in pain too. You're not just immediately going to a defensive stance. You're not just immediately wanting to self-preserve or make it about you. There has to be a level of caring that's something, whether you agree or not about what they're saying is causing it, something is causing your partner to be in pain, and you want to hear out what that is from their perspective and really validate that. If your partner is expressing feeling ignored, there's increased tension between the two of you that never seems to ever alleviate. If you start to see that your partner was once trying to engage a lot, but now they're withdrawing and they're not really coming at you anymore, trying to engage with you, that if that's not a behavior that you saw before and it kind of comes out of nowhere, rather than immediately jumping to the conclusion of they've changed, maybe examine what could have led them to behave that way. What just sparked that behavior? Be curious enough to want to know. Ask the question. If you notice that there was a topic that once was brought up a lot by your partner, and then all of a sudden they just kind of gave up on it and they don't seem very happy about it, but you notice that they avoid that topic now. If it never got resolved and they now avoid it, that's a good indication that maybe it was difficult to talk to you about it, or they were trying to avoid being stonewalled. They don't want to get that behavior. They don't want to spark that behavior in you. So they're now avoiding the topics that it seems that you are avoiding as well. But they don't go away. They just turn into resentment. So that's why this is really dangerous for the relationship. Another thing is if you notice that your partner is increasing in how much they are crying, or they are having emotional outbursts that they were not having for the beginning part of your relationship or up to that point. It just kind of started to increase over time. And if you once had a partner that was pretty level-headed and they would sit and try to have a conversation with you, and they were pretty patient and they would try to work this through with you, even if you did employ tactics of kind of like avoiding it a bit, they would still just like really continuously try to come to you and try to handle it and try to bring it up and try to really work it out. They persevered in that way. They were just relentless. And then you notice all of a sudden they're kind of getting more dysregulated. They're going immediately to anger or emotional outbursts. They're crying much more quickly in the conversation. All of a sudden, before, you guys could talk for hours and they would be fine. But now you're noticing you talk for a few minutes and they're instantly in tears, or they're maybe getting upset about little things when they didn't really get upset about those things before. This could be a sign that they have not been able to be heard. They're just all out of sorts, and it's starting to wear on them. This is why it's one of the four horsemen, because it's going to wear you and your partner down to where eventually you cannot put it back together. Okay, and then the last one would be if you notice that your partner is no longer coming to you for that, they're actually seeking support from others. They're seeking support from coworkers or friends or their own therapy, or they're spending more time with their family. They're spending more time with other people and not as much time with you, because they're hurting and they need support and they're not getting any from you. So that would cause them to spend more of their time with someone that they know is going to be supportive, like a friend or a family member. So a lot of times in relationships, a partner may notice that this starts to happen. Their partners, all of a sudden, they're spending exuberant amounts of time with their best friend or their mother or whatever it is. They're not spending as much time trying to talk to you. And that may seem like, you may be like, well, you're ruining our relationship because you're not spending any time with me anymore. You're not even trying to pay any attention to me anymore. But yes, while that very well could be the case, someone could do this for multiple reasons. This is not the only reason that someone would do this. But if you're noticing that wasn't their character before, that they seemed to be all about you and wanting to try to talk to you. Conflicts were not being resolved, and you felt like there was a lot of tension, and then all of a sudden, they're just like, and they're just spending more time now with their friend instead of trying to come to you. Really evaluate, well, how was I receiving them? Was I being a supportive partner? Was I hearing them out? Did I care what they had to say? Did I engage in the conversation? Did I try to reach a resolution? Or did I just say, it's this way and that's the way it is, and get out of here with that conversation? Or I don't want to have that. I don't have time for that. Just look at yourself. And because that is a key indicator that maybe you could have been stonewalling. Not always, but it's just one of those behaviors that it could be an indication. Now, if you are engaging in stonewalling yourself and you're not likely aware of it, and you're not going to say, I'm trying to avoid this conversation. You're not probably going to be saying that. But these are some phrases that you might notice you say a lot instead of that. Okay, so if any of these sound familiar and you know that you say these a lot, you could be stonewalling. Number 1 is, I don't want to deal with this right now. I don't have time to deal with this right now. This is not a good time. I can't do this tonight because of this. Let's do this tomorrow.
Babe, why do you have lipstick marks all over your face?
I don't want to deal with this right now.
I didn't kiss you. I don't even wear lipstick. I don't even have a mouth. We need to talk.
I need time.
Well, I think we need to address this now.
That one, okay? That one would be you're trying to avoid or procrastinate the conversation. You're trying to put it off. Number 2 is, this is pointless. It's not going to lead to anything good. Babe, I noticed that, this is really hard. I noticed that you bought Angel Soft again. I love Charmin. We've talked about this, babe. We need to talk about it again, I think.
This is pointless. It won't lead to anything good.
Now, if you're saying things like that, it's likely you feel for whatever reason this conversation never goes well, and it's just going to lead to maybe some heated arguments, or you don't like the outcome that happens when you have these types of conversations and you want to avoid that outcome. So maybe your partner yells, maybe your partner gets really emotional and it's overwhelming for you, or you don't like that, or just, it could be a million things. But if you're saying that, it's likely that you want to avoid the way that conversation turns out. Okay. Number 3 is, I can't handle this.
I think we should have that talk.
Alright, I'll hear you out. But you have to promise me that you're going to keep it together.
I'm sure.
You're not going to do that thing.
Yeah, I promise.
Okay.
I just...
No, don't.
No.
You're not good. You're not gonna do it. No.
I can't handle this. I can't handle this.
That one's more of the overwhelmed thing. That's the I'm throwing up my hands. This is too much for me. This is way too much emotion. This is way too much anger. This is way too much whatever it is. That's a good sign that that's happening. That's why you're stonewalling. Number 4 could be, I just need some space. I just need some space.
We need to talk.
I need some space. This is a good thing to ask for if you're having a conflict that's maybe getting to a level that you don't want to go to, and you don't want you and your partner to say things that you don't mean, and you just need a breather. You might need a break. That's okay to do once in a while in an argument or in a discussion that's getting a little bit out of hand. But if this is happening a lot, like every time you have a conversation that's, not something pleasant that you want to talk about, and you're saying, I just need some space, and you're using that as a way to avoid the conversation altogether, then that is probably a sign that you are stonewalling and avoiding the conversation for good. Like you don't ever intend to really get back to it because you don't like it. Okay. Number 5, you might say something like, I'm fine.
Oh, dang, babe, are you okay?
I'm fine. What?
You don't look fine.
No, I'm fine.
You look kind of mad.
I'm fine.
You sure?
I think you're not fine. I'm fine.
Your face.
Look at my face. I'm fine.
What do you mean what's wrong with my face? My face is fine. I'm fine.
It seems like you're really mad.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Is specific to, I think we've all seen it before, or you might be somebody who uses it a lot. I know I've done it before. It's when something is wrong, but you don't necessarily want to say what it is, or it's maybe something that's been bothering you for a while, or you feel like your partner should figure it out. You want them to pry for it, or whatever the reason may be. And you definitely have something wrong with you. It's very visible. It's obvious. You're treating them a certain way. You're stonewalling them. You're not talking to them, really. You're being kind of distant and not super nice. And then they say, "What's wrong?" And you say, "I'm fine." Not that I'm fine. Yeah. This would be a version of stonewalling. And you might think to yourself, sometimes I don't want to talk about whatever's wrong with me. I don't want to talk about it right now. Well, that's what you need to communicate then. Don't say that you're fine, because the reason that I'm fine is stonewalling is because it puts your partner in a position where they can't go anywhere with that. So there's no, yes, I am acknowledging that what you're seeing is reality and like that is actually happening, and I'm not denying that there is something wrong, but I need some time to think about it, and I'm going to talk about it with you at this time. I know we just went over that I need some time, and we'll talk about that later as being some signals that you could be stonewalling. But it's okay to say those things sometimes when you really just need a little time and you're going to return to the conversation. You want to give like an actual amount of time. Like for example, you're going to give them a time period. You're going to say, "Give me about an hour." And then you actually, in that hour, come back to the conversation. You fulfill your word, and you actually come back to it. If you're avoiding it, and you're saying, "I need time," you're not going to come back to it. You're going to then not be available in that hour. You're not going to go bring it up to them in that hour. Or you're going to say, "Oh, now I'm tired, I'm going to bed." After that hour, there's going to be another excuse why in an hour that doesn't happen. Or you're not going to give a time period. You're just going to indefinitely, forever, keep saying later, another time. Until just on and on and on, until it becomes apparent to your partner that you are putting it off indefinitely and that you don't intend to return to it. It's okay to ask for a break, like I said earlier. But if you're saying that just to escape the conversation indefinitely, then that's when it's stonewalling, okay? So anyways, I'm fine. You're not fine. You're telling your partner that you are fine. They can see that you're not. And the actual truth is you are not fine. So therefore, they can't do anything about it. They're stuck there. The only thing that they can do is just accept that you're saying you're fine, but you're not fine. So you're going to continue to act the way that you're acting, and they can no longer address it because all you've given them is that you're fine. So what do they say about that? They can't say anything. It just leaves them in this place where they have no options, okay? So that's why it's stonewalling. Another phrase that might indicate stonewalling is, "I don't want to talk about it."
Babe, I thought you promised me that we were going to start watching a little bit more of what I like to watch. I can't watch reruns of Roseanne every night. You promised me you were going to compromise about this. We need to talk.
I don't want to talk about it.
Now, gosh darn it, you know how much the Wonder Years mean to me. I love it. We need to talk about this.
This is probably the most straightforward indication that there's stonewalling approaching, and that's just right out refusal to talk about and to have the conversation. They just say, "I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to talk about that." So that's very blatant. Okay, I don't think I need to explain that too far. We talked about this one before. So if it's just silence when you ask a question, so when your partner asks you a question, if you just stay silent, or when you put a long pause before you answer, or you're giving answers that aren't actually answering the questions, or you're being like purposefully difficult about your answers, or you are giving like very one-word answers that aren't getting you to a resolution, you're never going to get anywhere doing that. That's probably a good indication that you're stonewalling. Changing the subject. So this is also the one that I was talking about earlier, where I was saying that you might take something that's like the larger topic and you kind of don't want to address that topic, so you pick one little thing out of that sentence that they said, or those many sentences that they said, that is just largely unrelated and irrelevant to the topic, and then you want to like focus in on that, or you change the subject entirely. So for example, your partner might be like,
You really need to talk about how your mom is coming over every day and she doesn't call first and just comes over whenever she wants. And how are we going to address this? Every time she comes over, she brings her bug collection and last time the cockroaches got out and they infested our house, and we need to talk about this.
And then your answer is,
My mom had dung beetles, and what is your thing with dung beetles? Why are you so offended by dung beetles? I mean, don't you know that a cockroach is not a dung beetle? Can you tell the difference? Let me show you. I'm gonna show you a picture between these two bugs. I don't know how you keep getting them mixed up, and I don't know why you want to argue about this. This is a dung beetle.
and then you go off on some tangent about the bug. Okay, so that would be focusing on a minor detail overly, or changing the subject. It's usually something that's going to be successful in distracting your partner. If this is something that you do often, you might pick something that's very enticing for your partner to join in on that conversation. They might be very offended that you are putting down their ability to tell between these two bugs, and they might really just have a bone to pick with you about that, and they might engage in that argument, and that successfully distracts from the argument you don't want to have, or the conversation you don't want to have about your mother coming over unannounced. Now, changing the subject, though, is a little bit different. This one, your partner might bring up a topic about something that they are hurt by, and without even addressing what they just said, you immediately divert to something about,
Well, you didn't do the dishes for 3 days. You don't care about that, so let's talk about that. Why don't we talk about how you don't do this?
so just changing the subject. Or
You don't really understand what I have going on every day, obviously. Like, you just want to bring me these problems. Like, do you understand that I have back-to-back meetings every day, all the time? Do you understand what my schedule is like? Like, you don't even care.
whatever it is, it's a effort to deflect and distract from what your partner just brought up to you, because you're not addressing what your partner brought up to you. What makes stonewalling so harmful? And this is the reason that it's deemed emotional abuse. These are the outcomes, and these are the particularly profound ways that it has a negative impact on your relationship, okay? So number one, breakdown in communication. Stonewalling is going to actively shut down your partner. It's going to tell them you are not available for access. You are not available to work this out with. This is going to end conflict resolution. This is going to make problems last on and on and on. This is going to make it challenging to address important topics and make any decisions together. So you're going to just ineffectively be addressing things, and you're not going to agree. You're not going to come to any solutions. You're just going to be two people that are operating in different directions. So you're not an effective couple whatsoever. Reason number two is because it is emotional abandonment. If you're constantly just saying no, essentially, to your partner whenever they're trying to engage with you in a conversation that's important to them or important to your relationship, which all of them are. If it's important to your partner, it needs to be important to you, because you're both part of the relationship, you're both part of the team. You need to work together. If one person is not feeling resolved, not feeling happy, not feeling validated, your team is losing. Okay, if you are winning something by yourself and you defeated your partner in something, you should not feel good about that, because you lost. Because if your partner loses, then your team loses, so therefore you lose as well. So when you're over there kind of like on your high horse, like, ha ha ha, I won, you look kind of questionable because you didn't. You lost. You're failing the relationship. Like, don't do that. That doesn't make any sense. A smarter, wiser, more mature partner would know that it is the team that has to win for you to win. You can't win by yourself when you're in a partnership. You can't. That's literally losing if you're doing that, okay? Keep that in mind. So, emotional abandonment, if you're stonewalling your partner, you're going to make them feel abandoned. You're going to make them feel like what they have to say doesn't matter. You're not going to be emotionally supporting them. It's going to make them feel distant from you. It's going to make them eventually come to the conclusion that maybe you have a lack of care or concern, or maybe even a lack of love for them, that you don't really love them, that they're not all that important to you. These are the things that cause intense pain to people. This is why it's going to end in the relationship ending if you continue to use this tactic. Number 3, escalation of conflict. This is a really important one to get, okay? Because a lot of times people who are stonewalling, they don't want to be having the conflict, right? So get this, take this in, okay? You are escalating the conflict. You are ensuring that that conflict is going to get multitudes bigger. It's going to get worse. It's going to get more intense. It's going to get more dysregulated. It's going to get more ridiculous and inundated with things that don't even have anything to do with it. It's just going to snowball like crazy to a level that you did never even imagine. And so what you're doing is you're just making a conflict that you already didn't want to really address 20 times bigger and 20 times more impossible to address, and essentially guaranteeing that that conflict is going to be your demise, because you will not address it. Most logical reason to stop engaging in stonewalling, besides the fact that it's purely emotional abuse to your partner, is that it quite literally does not achieve your goal. It gets you the thing that you don't want to happen. It gets you the thing that you're trying to avoid. It makes that bigger, more intense, worse, harder, more unbearable. It makes all of that. So it takes a problem that's just maybe about this big, and it eventually makes it as big as a mountain. It's just unnecessary. It'll be unnecessarily big. Something that could have been addressed within one evening will now be something that you will fight over without getting anywhere on it, and just be distant from each other for, it could be years, until you just absolutely have destroyed every hope or bond that was ever between the two of you, till you almost don't even know each other, and you almost can't even love each other anymore. It just destroys two people. It's not going to achieve the goal that you're trying to achieve with it. So it's best to learn that this is not a good tactic and to stop doing it as soon as possible. Number 4, it's undermining to trust. I think we all kind of know it's a little bit difficult to open up to someone, to believe that they're going to be there for you, to believe that they're going to be supportive, to believe that they're going to try to meet your needs, that they're even going to be able to meet your needs, that they're going to care about the things that hurt you. It's hard to trust someone that they're going to do that. And sometimes your partner is going to fall short. We're all going to fall short. It's going to happen. So, and that's one of the most beautiful things that you can give to your partner is your trust, because it's really hard to do. And you're giving that, and when someone's engaging in stonewalling, that's very undermining to that trust and that beautiful gift that your partner has given you, of having faith in you enough that they are even bothering to come to you and try to address problems. Because as much as you want to avoid that conflict and you're using stonewalling to get away from it, they don't want to have the conflict either. They're just doing the right thing. They're just willing to address the conflict because they love you and they love the relationship, and they want to get the conflict out of the way because they know that that conflict that's standing in their way needs to be resolved to get it out of the way. And when you're stonewalling it, you're keeping it planted and you're watering it and helping it grow. So it's undermining to trust that makes it really hard for a partner to continue to trust in you emotionally, that you're going to be able to be there for them, that you're going to care about what needs to be done to address conflicts properly and as an adult whenever they arise, swiftly, and get them out of the way. It's nice to be able to trust in a partner that they're good at that and that they are dedicated to that. That's what commitment means. If you're saying you're committed to somebody just because you kind of stick around and you have them around for a long time and you don't essentially break up with them, so-called, but you're stonewalling them constantly and you're never addressing conflicts and you're not resolving them and you're just kind of like keeping you guys in that loop, that's not commitment. You are not being committed. And that makes someone have a lack of trust in you. It causes emotional harm, obviously. That's why it's emotional abuse. That's the number one thing about emotional abuse and how you deem something emotional abuse, is because it causes severe emotional harm, whether that harm is short-term or long-term. And typically if it's emotional abuse, it's going to cause it long-term as well. And the problem is that when someone continuously dismisses you and doesn't take an interest in why you're upset and doesn't make the time or effort to hear you out properly and actually care and actually want to do something about why you're feeling the way that you feel and doesn't want to engage in that with you, over time that chips away at your self-esteem. You could be the most self-assured person, but love will make you do some crazy things. So you might think you would never stay in a relationship like that where that's happening, but unless you fall in love, you'd be surprised, okay? So your partner could find themselves in a situation where they don't want to give up on you. They really want you to get this. They love you so much that they're committed and they keep trying. Just keep trying. They just keep on trying. And over time, that is going to wear on them. And that is going to hurt them and their confidence. And it's been long since accepted and proven that, it's not like the past where it wasn't so heavily emphasized that mental health and emotional well-being was just as important as physical well-being. It can be just as impactful, if not more. You can absolutely perish and ruin your life and absolutely lose your health, including your physical health, from a lack of mental well-being, a lack of emotional well-being. It is very real. When you're in a partnership, it's not only on your partner to make sure that they can keep themselves in a lively way and keep themselves mentally healthy. I mean, it's largely their job if they're having a mental health struggle and it's not any of your input. But if you're sitting here stonewalling them and engaging in these behaviors that is causing them to feel this way, largely, you are absolutely very much responsible for your partner's mental health in that situation and your partner's emotional well-being, very much so. That is why this is called emotional abuse. Because if you tear down someone's emotional well-being, then you could tear down their overall well-being over time. You could start to see someone losing a lot of weight. You could start to see someone no longer feeling very engaged in other activities. They're sad, they're depressed, they're just disappointed in how this is turning out, regardless of how much effort they keep putting in. They just keep running into this wall, this stone wall. It's so draining and deflating over time. It hurts so bad. And it really can have health effects on you. And they're not to be dismissed. They're very serious. So lastly, what's the end result? Relationship damage, relationship failure. You know, this person that you love so much that you think you just want to avoid these conflicts with, you just don't want to engage in that. You don't have time for this. You're going to essentially over time cause irreparable damage to the relationship with that person. So essentially, for reasons that didn't need to happen, that you could address the issue that's causing you to stonewall and you could resolve it. And then you could keep that person in your life. You could keep that love alive. There's always a way to work it out. If two people are willing, there's not a way if one person is absolutely stubborn and standing their ground and is just like, nope, not doing it. Not going to be looking at myself. Not going to engage in the fact that I could be any part of the issue. I'm just not going to. No. Then in that case, like, you might as well just right now say, get that out of here to your relationship, because that is where you're headed. And the longer that you enact this cycle of toxicity, it's going to end exponentially more painfully for both of you. When you learn all of these things, it's just not quite an intelligent thing to continue to do, because it's really hurtful. It's going to hurt you too. A lot. There's better ways. If you find that you may be stonewalling and you can find that bravery inside yourself and that gusto and that confidence to say, you know what? I'm up, okay? Whatever. I did. I am so sorry, and I want to fix it.
And like, let's get it going. Let's turn this train around, because girl, or boy, I love you, okay? Let's get back to the love. Let's get back to the intimacy. Let's get back to the partnership. Let's get back to the days where we were smiling and happy. And
you can have that back, but you have got to let down your guard. You have got to be brave. This is what's brave, is accepting accountability. Is admitting that you're doing something that's not so favorable. Admitting that you were wrong. Admitting that maybe you didn't know better, and now you do, and you're willing to admit that. As a woman, as a man, you're brave enough to stand up and say,
I love you enough that I want to tell you I was wrong, and I want to learn how I can change it.
There's therapy available, obviously, but if you can't afford therapy, there's worlds of help on YouTube. I mean, it's not like the old days where it was just like every person, whoever wanted to make videos, is just making videos about these very intense, intricate behaviors. You know, there's actually doctors and psychiatrists and psychologists and couples therapists and life coaches that are credentialed, that are on YouTube making videos to help people, you know, giving the pointers. You know, it may not be as specialized and personalized to your particular situation, but you can, you know, if you want to put in the effort, you can find it. You'll find a way. There's plenty of self-help. There's plenty of help to people that don't have the money or don't have the resources for formal therapy. You can do this. I believe in you, and I know that the power of love is going to win over stubbornness and over ego, because we say, you ego, okay?
And not a period.
Thank you so much for watching my video again. I love that you come here and you watch my videos, and I appreciate you so much. You mean everything to me. I would love to hear what you want me to do a video on in the comments. Please feel free to leave a comment. Please subscribe. It is how I continue to grow my channel, and it's how I will be able to make more videos. I love you. Thank you. Please come back and see me again. See you soon. Bye. Okay, I'm not trying to be weird, but like, did you guys notice I have 2 different earrings on? Yeah, I did that on purpose. I knew I was doing it, but like, I actually quite literally couldn't find the match to either of these, and I love these earrings, both of them. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna wear them together. Like, I'm not gonna let these go. They're so cute. If you noticed that before in my video, you're probably like, what is wrong with her? Woo! Who does this? Who does that? Come on, you know that feels good. Just say it with me. Like, okay, I'm not gonna flip off the camera, but like, pretend, okay? I'm gonna use this finger. You ego. You ego. You ego. You ego. Literally, you ego.